Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast.
A very warm welcome to episode 16 of Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast. It's here again with me, Dave D.
And me, Dave B.
And welcome along. We've got all our usual goodies coming up for you as well, along with the usual pile of other good stuff as well, Dave.
We do, and there's also some, not unusual, but some new things to talk about. Firstly, from a personal perspective, at this time of recording, I'm not quite married, but by the time you are listening to this, I will be, all being well, unless I've been left at the altar or something, which will change the tone of the next episode at least. Anyway, so that should all be very good. Very excited about that. And the more observant among you will have noticed that podcast is not sponsored anymore. A fluid situation, something is happening, but Dave can just talk a little bit more about that as well, just to bring you up to speed of what's going on in our world.
Yeah, we would very much like to thank Real Drinks as well for being our sponsor for the last few months and for all the help they've given us with our drink-along sections and providing beers and publicising us and getting us out there. But we thought it was time for a change because we're coming up to our 1-year anniversary and we want to give a smaller establishment a bit of a push. Now, we have mentioned them on the podcast a few times before, and we've given out the occasional discount code for them, but we are teaming up properly as of the start of August with our friends at Hall Beer, who you can find at hall-beer.com. And they've got a wonderful range of craft beers, and they've got a very exciting future ahead of them. They haven't been going that long, so we're really, really pleased to team up with them. And we shall tell you more about that as and when it happens in the next few weeks. Like I said, beginning of August is the date, and there's loads of exciting things we hope to be doing with them.
Absolutely, and first and foremost, get it in your calendars for August, because there won't be drink-alongs for this episode, but come August and moving forward, that is returning. So we hope that you will get stuck in again, get ordering those beers and enjoy them along with us.
So, as well as our usual features, Hype or Tripe, our favourite beer of the last few weeks, we've also got some guests coming along as well. We've got Carl from the Frisky Bear Brewing Company. Very excited to speak to Carl. We've also got Ridgeside popping in with an update from their side of things. So, loads going on as usual, and we're going to kick off with Brew to Me.
Yes, every episode we kick off with Brew to Me, which is where Dave and I seek out a new brewery to each of us and sample their wares to see if we can uncover some gems, which we have along the way. We've definitely found some really good beers, and we've also had some that haven't been as good, but that's all part of the fun. There's a little story behind why I've got what I've got this time around. I've got a beer from Mould in Wales, and the savvy amongst you will know Mould in Wales is home to Polly's, but much like London has many, many breweries, Mould apparently has another brewery, and it is Hafod Brewing. Now, I apologise if I've butchered that.
Do you think they get chuffed off being so close to Polly's and Polly's stealing all the limelight?
Well, they've definitely been around way before Polly's, because the front of the bottle says Brewing Co. Mould 2011. So they were in situ a good long time ago. Welshbeer.com is where you can find them. They're very proud of their heritage. And as Dave has done in previous episodes, I would say I've got something of probably a traditional brewer that's now going into craft as well as doing trad stuff still. And they seem to, even with the newer stuff I can see, there's raspberry saisons, there are Belgian doubles and West Coast pales, all bottles, no cans. But what I've got, because my friend who lives close to them sent me 3 down, and of the 3, the one that appealed the most was, again, I apologise in advance for the pronunciation, Moel Famu, which is Moelfamau. It's a heather-infused dark ale. So it sounds very trad, doesn't it?
What was that? Heather-infused?
Heather-infused. I have had a heather-infused beer before. I can't remember it, though, so I don't really know what to expect here. The nose is quite chocolatey, actually. It smells quite traditional. It's that thing of we said when you have those darker beers and it smells of something initially and then it goes to very sort of watery smell. It is that kind of thing.
Okay. He's just going for a taste. He's not grimacing too much.
So, delicious dark ale brewed using heather smoked malt, creamy roasted flavours with chocolate and coffee notes. I was kind of hoping heather would have its own specific taste almost, if you know what
I guess what we're talking here is probably sort of smoky and malty with maybe a little bit of chocolate or something, is it?
It is a little bit smoky. I wouldn't say it's that malty.
Okay.
The chocolate's there. I don't know that the coffee's massively there. I would say it's a dark ale, and it might have benefited if I'd had it at room temperature for ages, and then I just thought, oh, I'll just chill it off a bit, and it's been in the fridge today. I wonder if that's killed it slightly.
Well,
and given its heritage, perhaps I should have just left it alone.
Possibly. What ABV did you say it was?
4.1.
Okay. All right. Why don't you just leave it for a few minutes to sort of get up to room temperature, and I'll get into mine.
It feels at the moment very much something you'd have out of a hand pull.
Fair enough. I think that's probably what you expected anyway. Right, I am going to Romania. Never been to Romania, but I'm going there sort of on our craft journey, as it were. And I've got one here from the Bereta Brewing Company, which I believe translates to the Beret Brewing Company.
Sorry, the reason I'm laughing is because I was going to choose that as my brew to me. I've got exactly the same beer that you're going to have now, which is an 8% dipper. Is that right?
Yeah, where did we get these from then? Because I couldn't remember. Well,
Yeah,
anyway,
how funny.
wherever they
Anyway.
came from. This looks amazing, look, in the glass. Look at that.
Cool, that does look good, actually. Lovely and thick.
So this is a double dry hopped New England IPA. So when we talk about New Englands, you'll hear us talk about New Englands a lot. You expect a New England to be hazy, which it is, packed with sort of tropical and fruity aromas. Smells like it and certainly tastes like it. And it's right at the other end of the scale to your West Coast IPA, which is sort of piney, resinous, see through it. These beers are everything that the West Coast style isn't. Real opposite end of the spectrum. Double dry hopping, it's certainly there. We should maybe speak people through the process of double dry hopping a little bit and just explain what happens. Basically, when something is dry hopped, hops are added just before beer is canned or bottled or whatever. When it's double dry hopped, that's done twice. So you may find it's dry hopped, say 7 days before it goes into keg, and then another one 4 days. So it's as simple as that, really. It just happens twice after the primary fermentation. What that does is it gives it a real hit of whatever it is they're trying to get into there, with it, whether it be the sort of juiciness or the bitterness. It's sort of a supercharged beer, if you want.
Yeah, and it's probably also worth pointing out, or certainly how I find a DDH, as they're sort of slanged into, is you get the fruit or something at the front end, as you say, they're packing that punch, but then the bitterness comes through at the end, and it can be quite intense as well.
This has got Eldorado, Enigma and Citra, by the way.
Okay. Enigma's popping up a lot at the moment.
It is, isn't it?
I see it's being used more for seasoning, is a phrase I've seen it's being used for.
Oh, okay. Well, they do say it has a spruce-like hop flavour, so maybe that's where the sort of seasoning bit comes from. But all three of those hops actually are known for different types of fruits. Your Enigma, also known for a bit of nectarine and orange. Eldorado, sort of intense flavours. And Citra, of course, orangey citrus character. And yeah, they are all there. It's lovely and thick as well. Sort of another phrase bandied around a lot is mouthfeel. But there is a fair whack of mouthfeel with this, as you would imagine. Do you wish you'd have had this one by any chance?
Yeah, I'm beginning to think I wish I had that one. I had that, which is the only beer in my fridge at the moment from a brewery that I've not had, and these ones. And I just thought, well, I'll go for this because it's a little bit different, and it's not usually what I'd choose, because 9 times out of 10, I think I probably do a pale and brew to me. So I thought I'll go a bit different, but I think I wish I'd stuck to type.
So I should probably tell you a little bit about the Bereta Brewing Company from Romania. They started in around 2016. They started gypsy brewing, so going around to other breweries in Romania and brewing their beers there. Then they started out on their own in 2018, June, so just about 3 years ago. And I see they've sort of released about 120 different beers now. And like I said, that's the first one I've had, but that is pretty good. In fact, very good.
I get the sense watching you drink it that you've really enjoyed it. And it's worth pointing out as well that you would traditionally stay away from that kind of beer. You can drink it, but it wouldn't be your go-to, would it?
Not at all, no. When you pick something that isn't a go-to and you enjoy it, you know it's good. Can't remember whether I actually said what it was called. Very possibly didn't. It's called Genuine Allegory, 8% double dry hop New England Dipper. If you see one, get hold of one, or anything else from them for that matter. How's yours faring, Dave? You're getting down the glass, not too much left.
It's not changed. I think I've been slightly suckered in with the idea of it being heather infused, and perhaps, as I sort of alluded to earlier, if it's on a hand pull, maybe that comes through a bit more. I would be lying if I knew what I would be looking for, but I would have thought it would stand out because it's so different.
I don't know what something that's heather infused would taste or smell like, really. Sort of a bit herbal? I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe. But this is essentially just a dark ale that you would have. It is hand pull. And that's not to denigrate it too much, but we are a craft beer podcast, and this feels very rooted in tradition. Now, I've sort of had a look on their website. I mentioned a couple of the beers they've got, and there were things like they actually do a dipper, and it's a Sriracha Ace dipper, which is out there. I wouldn't necessarily give up on them, but I think I'd want to try something like that to see where they're at. You know, get a real crafty offering rather than this, which is very rooted in tradition.
You're listening to Dave B and Dave D on Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast.
Daftaboutcraft.
Right, so it's the part of the podcast where we welcome somebody else on board to have a chat with us, and it's up the M1 to Leeds to the Frisky Bear Brewing Company and to Carl. How are you doing, Carl?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, Dave. Nice to be here. Thanks for having us on.
Not a problem. Thanks very much for joining us. We like to sort of get as many names on here that are new to us as we can, and yours is pretty new to us, so we thought we'd have a chat with you. Although you're new to us, you've been going for a fair few years already. We just haven't come across you, it seems.
Yeah, we've been pretty small up until the last few years. I started out as a garage brewer, so we've been going 5 years this year. I started out as a garage brewer, just pretty small scale, as a lot of the new startups do, just doing it as a hobby really. We took on a local bar a few years back, and we moved the brewery into the bar, and we were brewing as kind of a little brew pub. And then we moved into a big unit because we were getting more demand for our beers. Literally about 6 months before the pandemic hit. So we kind of never really got a chance to ride the wave and grow as we were growing.
And how's the pandemic sort of? Obviously, many people got set back by it. It sounds like it came at a terrible time for you guys. How have you sort of found the last year and a bit now as it is, and getting through it and getting hopefully to the other side of it?
Yeah, it's been a tough one, as it has been for everybody in the industry. We were ramping up production when the pandemic hit, and we were sat on a massive load of beer in cask and keg. It was only as pubs shut during lockdown one that we kind of diversified. We started bottling all our product initially and bagging box and pouches like a lot of other brewers were doing, and then slowly kind of grew into the canning operation and kind of built up the range that we've got now.
So sort of COVID forced your hand with the canning then?
I kind of had the plan to kind of do, try and get some of our beers into cans in 2020, but it definitely forced our hand quicker. Because when pubs were shut, that the only option for brewers was to sell direct to the general public. So we decided to can really, really hard, and we quickly canned 6 beers within a couple of weeks, and then just carried on the momentum really. And we've kind of now we've got into a cycle of always having about 12 different beers in cans all the time.
And I think that's what people want, isn't it? People love the people who buy cans. They love a variety, and they want to get different cans all the time. Yeah,
definitely. The way we brew is we don't have a core range. We just, we'll cycle a beer on, and when that beer's gone, it'll stay off for a while. If it's been a popular beer, we might bring it back, 6 months down the line or whatever. But we're always bringing on new recipes, different styles, to try and keep it fresh and keep customers coming back for different stuff.
So when you talked about, you just cast a load of stuff at the start of the lockdown, so presumably that just had to be chucked away.
We were predominantly a keg brewer, so we didn't have much stuff in cask.
Right, okay.
So we were able to get most of that keg stock out into bottles.
Right.
We did waste a little bit of cask, but not a lot in the grand scheme of things. Not a lot compared to what some of the bigger brewers were wasting.
This is why I said it. You see these sort of pictures in the media of these bigger breweries just drain pouring all these beers, don't you?
We probably wasted about somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 litres in total over the year. But, in the grand scheme of things, it's not. That's, it's only 1 or 2 brews worth of beer for us.
We've got a few beers to try. It's good news for me. Got a lot of pails. Is that something that you consciously do, or are you you say you got a lot of beers? Do you like doing every possible style, or is there one sort of thing you gravitate towards?
The main style I kind of gravitate towards is, the kind of modern hazy IPAs that are real kind of hop forward. I think we've got about 4 or 5 dark beers in can at the minute. We're kind of seasonal, so we very much like to, brew lighter beers in summer, darker beers in winter, and just kind of change it up, really, kind of depending on what the customer demand is and, what the current trends are, really.
Speaking of trends, the first beer I thought we could get into is the Belgian Pale, which I know is one of your newer ones.
Yeah.
And very topical at the moment, Yorkshire Pale Euro edition. So I'm guessing, is there a non-Euro edition? And this also betrays the fact that I'm guessing you're a big Leeds fan.
Yeah. Like, that's kind of goes without saying, grew up around Leeds. Went to my first Leeds game when I was like 8 years old with my father. So it's kind of in the blood, really. But going back to your question, there is a non-Euro edition. So when Leeds United got promoted last year, we we jumped on the bandwagon a little bit and released a beer called Yorkshire Pale, and it was solely in cask. So it's a 3.9% pale, kind of a traditional English IPA or English pale, but with an American Cascade hop. And it was a really, really great seller, in this area specifically. A Leeds fan walks into a pub and sees a Leeds United themed beer on the bar, and they instantly kind of gravitate towards it. So, it was an immediate win. And then when kind of 10 p.m. curfew came in and that circuit breaker lockdown that we had towards the end of last year, when pubs were starting to close, we decided to kind of change the recipe a little bit and can the regular Yorkshire Pale, so it turned into a 5.5% IPA. And that was it was literally our fastest selling beer to date. As soon as we released it, it was almost gone within a couple of days. And and then obviously when, the Calvin Phillips, who it's named after, got selected for England for the Euros, we decided to kind of just do it as one last hurrah and jump on the Euro kind of theme and change it up into a Belgian pale.
Oh, which it most certainly is, having just had my first sip of it. It's not so much Belgian yeasty, but there is a bit of that, but it's the malt backbone of it seems very Belgian to me.
It's very, very biscuit malt heavy, so it's kind of amber in colour, fermented with a Belgian Abbey yeast. So it's it's turned out very, very well.
Yeah, this is lovely.
And it was it was my first attempt at a Belgian beer as well. So it was it's turned out really well. It's not usually a style that I would kind of gravitate towards or brew, but it's turned out very good.
So how many people work at the brewery? Is it just you? Is it a group of you? How's it work?
Yeah, so it's always been just me, and I always kind of said I'd kind of leave it like that until like the last possible minute. Especially obviously, with last year and so it's just me. I'm very, 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 very busy all the time.
This is why you're a difficult person to get hold of, isn't it? I see now.
Yeah, I know. But it's getting to that stage now where we are, we're looking forward to the, last part of this year and planning the strategy for next year. We'll probably definitely see maybe 2 or 3 more people come on board within the next 12 months because it's getting to that stage where it's just getting too much for one person.
I can imagine.
Would part of those plans be, you mentioned a bigger unit, is it a big enough unit that you can be doing a tap room element to it? Is that something you're considering?
We open on a Saturday as a tap room. We've got quite a nice outdoor space. It's an industrial unit that we're in, but it's not on your kind of traditional industrial park. We're in like a little gated area with only 2 other units on the site. So we've got, very much free reign to the outside space on a weekend. So nice. We are trying to kind of build that up at the minute. But in terms of size of the unit, we are outgrowing it very, very quick. Trades come back, in a real big way since everywhere was able to reopen. We're already thinking, if we get to the size of, where we need to move out, it'll probably be within the next, 12 to 18 months where we might go again for somewhere bigger.
So what's it like being in Leeds area when there's so many massive giants of the craft world based right near to you? Is that a problem, or does it help?
No, it's weird, because there's so many brewers in the LS postcode. And I think even in the last year during the pandemic, there's been another three or four that have opened as well. So it is very saturated, but everyone kind of just bandies together, and everybody's really friendly and helps each other out if they need to. I don't see it as a kind of a bad thing. Leeds has got a real good kind of reputation for some top brewers, so it's kind of nice to be a part of that.
I think it's testament, as you were just saying there, that if you've got all these guys on your doorstep, literally, and you're got bigger once and you're already touch wood and everything, you're hoping to get bigger again. That must be testament to what you're doing there and the quality of what you're putting out.
I hope that's how people see us. It's like I say, it's a real good scene in the area at the minute, and some of the top brewers that are putting out some real good stuff. It's good to kind of see that and be a part of it.
And talking about the beers you put out, I'm going to open one now. Not the one that Dave's got, because that sort of style isn't really my thing. I'm going for the Sweet Shop IPA. I
think the inspiration for that's quite obvious, judging on the label and I think the description. I can't remember, but we're fruit salad here, aren't we? The old Sweet Shop fruit salad.
Yeah, those little fruit salad sweets that you used to get when you were a child.
They used to get them for about a penny, didn't you? Goodness knows what they cost.
That's right. You do go to the local little corner shop and get them in bags of.
That's
in
it.
a paper bag.
That's it.
20. Take them to school. And so the little fruit salad. So that's what the beer is based on. So it's a 6.3% kind of New England style IPA, heavily hopped, and then a little bit of natural flavouring of raspberry and pineapple in there as well.
That's quite incredible. That is a fruit salad in a glass. That
it has been very, very well received. Yeah,
that is. I haven't had a fruit salad for about 35 years, but you taste that, and you can taste that. It sort of takes you back in time. That does. Wow, that's brilliant.
Well, that's a hearty recommendation. Just don't be tempted to do an aniseed blackjack version. I can't stand those things.
Yeah, that was somebody recommended that. So as soon as we released it, somebody said, "Are you going to do the blackjack one to complement it?" We'll probably have to work on the recipe for that one, because that'll probably be a little bit harder.
We'd have to, I suppose, automatically it's on the darker side. So you're looking at some sort of aniseed porter or stout, but you rarely see aniseed. There might be good reason that's the case.
Yeah.
But what do you have in the pipeline? You say you're always busy bringing along new recipes and stuff. Is there anything you're particularly excited about in the next few months?
We're very, very busy in the cask market at the minute. So I'm constantly rebrewing some of our existing beers all the time. And then obviously because it's still me, I'm just trying to fit in canning as and when, really. So I've got a couple of recipes in the pipeline for the next, 6-8 weeks or so. But we very kind of work to a 2 to 4 week schedule, and just kind of see and judge how the market's going, and in terms of what I need to brew and where my time's kind of going to be allocated. I'm
a bit taken aback by this. It's
yeah, you have gone a bit quiet.
You're
enjoying yourself, aren't you?
All the bits are in the right place in this. It's spot on. To get to this beer, did you nail this first time, or did it take a few incarnations to get it to this point?
Yeah, that was it. It wasn't a shot in the dark, but that was the first incarnation, and wow. It was built on experience of brewing these New England style beers, and then just adding the right hops in the right quantity, and adding some flavour into it as well.
Here's a question for you then. We were talking about being in Leeds and having so many other great breweries around you. I can't imagine this happens very often, but if you do find yourself at a loose end and you want to go out and have a drink somewhere, where do you go to?
That's a tough one, because I've not been out so much in the last 18 months. But I think Leeds as a city centre is very much thriving. There's a lot of brewers that have opened bars specifically in the city centre of Leeds. Thornbridge have opened a big place in Leeds city centre. North Brewing have got a couple of places now. Got Northern Monk in the city centre as well. There's almost too much choice, and we are spoilt for choice in a way.
You almost need to spend a week there rather than just a sort of Saturday night, don't you?
But I guess when I go out, I'm as a brewer that brews kind of modern, kind of craft, heavily hop forward stuff. when I go into Leeds, I kind of like to seek out the more traditional old style pubs, where you can find a good pint of Landlord on cask or something like that.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, just to change it up a little bit, because I'm a beer fan at heart. Well, grew up drinking John Smith's, and then when kind of beer started to become a bigger thing, gravitating towards cask stuff like traditional Tetleys and Theakstons and stuff like that.
So you're going to be hanging out in like a Samuel Smith's pub?
Yeah, or a real. We've got a pub in the centre of Leeds called Whitelocks, which has been there for like years. Like we're talking like decades. Really, really old pub. Wooden beams. Always look after the cask really, really well. But yeah, anything traditional really. Sam Smith's, absolutely, yeah.
So sort of almost the opposite to what you do then, the other end of the scale.
Yeah, probably just because I'm so involved with it all the time. And sometimes you just like a little bit of variation and to see what other people are doing. And
are you sort of planning? I mean, I might be wrong. Living down in the southeast, I'm yet to see any of your cans or your cask anywhere. But are you sort of quite Leeds centric at the moment? And the idea is to get a bit more nationwide.
I would say we're very Yorkshire centric at the moment. Right. We do a little bit of national stuff. It's mainly cans from bottle shops further afield and stuff like that.
So sort of long term, say in maybe 5 years' time, where would you want to be in 5 years?
I think, we just want to kind of grow organically, keep producing the same quality beers that we always do. That's kind of what we're known for. When we had the brewery in the bar that we used to own, all the beers were on the bar, and that's how we kind of got known for the quality of beers that we do. So, to keep that same quality and just grow organically, become a national supplier, you guys to see us in your local bar or something like that, just grow organically. I don't think we want to be the next Brewdog or whatever.
We talk to a lot of people, and a lot of them sort of say they just want to keep going, expand a little bit. They don't want world domination. They just want their beers to get out there to everybody so everybody can see how they are.
Most of the guys who I, have conversations with, other brewers, they just appreciate good beer and they enjoy what they do, and they just want to keep doing it. They don't want to be a CEO of a big company and sit behind a desk all day. Like, I love brewing. That's why I started the company, and that's why I brew the beers that I like, because I just enjoy it. So I don't really want to ever see myself being hands off. I want to be brewing the beer all the time. So, and I think that's common in brewers my size, And
I think that's the passion, isn't it? You don't want to sort of relinquish control to anybody else. You want to be there at the forefront of everything because it's your thing, isn't it? It's your business.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. Yeah, I started it in my garage as a hobby, but with the same passion that I still have now. I don't really ever want to lose that, and I only really get that through brewing beer and developing new recipes and playing with new hop varieties and stuff like that.
We haven't asked you why Frisky Bear. What's the name?
There's not really a story behind it. I know there should be, and we probably should make one up.
Just make it up. People. Make it up.
Yeah, but there's not really a story behind it, other than when I first came up with the idea for the company. Back when I was a home brewer, before I kind of started out, a lot of brewers were popping up and naming themselves after the town that they were in. And I didn't want to just be, the Morley brewer, the town that we're in. So I wanted something a little bit more quirky and memorable and recognizable. And that goes along with the beer naming as well. We name all our beers with little quirky names as opposed to just calling them, IPA or pale or stout. It just kind of ties in with, with what we are, and everything's a little bit kind of quirky and, and frisky.
So we're talking earlier about the web shop. If people want to get hold of your beers, and on the basis of what I've just had, everybody should do, what's the website address?
So it's friskybear.com, and there's a shop link on the menu page. You can get all our beers on there as singles. You can mix your own cases. You can get a mixed case. We ship nationwide. I
should say they're massively reasonably priced as well.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah. We don't want to rip people off or anything like that. It's we brew, we make a good margin. I want to make a living, but I also want people to enjoy our beers because that's the reason why we do it.
Daftaboutcraft.
Okay, so it's time to hit the button on this music now. And for those of you who've listened to Daft About Craft before, you'll know that when you hear this music, it's time for our tried and tested feature, which basically is us telling you the favourite beer we've both experienced since our last episodes. And mine came at the Summer Brewery in Birmingham, SOMMAR. They brew their own beer, and they've also got a lovely tap room in the centre of Birmingham, right by the canal. Spent a very warm afternoon there a few weeks ago. Had a good few pales, couple of sours, 10% sour as well from Alpha Delta along the way. And we ended off with a milk stout from Turning Point. Our friends at Turning Point who have been on the podcast a couple of times now. And the beer was Gravediggers Biscuits, 9% milk stout. Wouldn't really be what you'd associate with a warm summer's day, but it went down really, really well. It didn't taste like 9%, only had a third of it, but it really stood out, really excellent. And I've noticed that these milk stouts are something I sort of go to at the end of a drinking session sometimes, so I think my one last time was from the same sort of territory. It was a milk stout as well, so give me a 9-10% milk stout and I'm happy. What about you, Dave? What have you been enjoying?
Not milk stouts. I don't mind milk stouts, but that is a strange niche to be.
It is, isn't it?
But each to their own. That is the beauty of craft beer, as we've said before. And mine's actually a bit odd because it's not the kind of thing I normally go for. But this came from New Invention, who, again, friends of the podcast. It was the blueberry and vanilla pale ale. It's a milkshake, and the colour's fantastic. It looks like that sort of purpley blue of a blueberry, really thick. And it tastes exactly how it sounds. It's blueberry, it's vanilla, it was thick, it was sweet, but not sickly sweet. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I have noticed that New Invention, when they get some lactose and they're doing some fruit flavours, they are all over it and they really nail it. So I really enjoyed that. I also really enjoyed actually coming to see you in person. And we got to go out in some various haunts nearby. We went to Hull, of course, given our news earlier. We also went to Cup and had a couple of nice beers in there, but the one that really stood out to me was the day after. It was in Kidderminster. It was a place called Weavers, and it was everything you like if you like that kind of traditional place. And they've also embraced craft. They had a load of hand pulls, but then they had 6 craft beers on as well.
I couldn't believe that when there were 6. I knew they'd got 1 or 2, but I had no idea there were 6 of them.
It was excellent, wasn't it? We got to have a Nothing Bound, we got to have a Dig Brew, both really well looked after, really good beers, and they were just throwing around free cheese boards as well, which is a winner in anyone's book, I would argue.
Sunday afternoon with a free cheese board, few local craft beers, what can be better than that? And also, of course, we should mention the company we kept while we were at the Weavers.
Yes, well, it was great. We got to meet Dan and Sam in person from Copper Beach. There's some exciting stuff happening with them, which we're not quite at liberty to divulge yet. So you'll have to keep listening to future episodes to find out what's going on there. But it was really great to meet them and talk to them properly. And it was a real shame, actually, that I had to drive home that day because I could have quite easily stayed in there all day.
Had to spoil the fun and break up the party. I think we could have still been there at 9 o'clock at night quite easily, couldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a very good afternoon.
Daft About Craft.
Hi, Dave and Dave, and the listeners of Daft About Craft. This is Stephen here from Richside Brewing Co. in Leeds. I guess I'll start with a little bit about us. So we are actually the oldest independent brewery in Leeds. We've been brewing from our little site in Meanwood since 2010, so nearing on 11 years this summer, actually. We predominantly started as a cask brewery, as I'm sure many did. We still brew cask and, always make sure to make a bit of a tip to our heritage. We launched a beer last year called Company Bitter, which was based on a bitter recipe that we've been brewing for a very long time, at least 5 years. And we decided, with the pubs being closed, that we would adapt that to be a cask in a can sort of offering. It actually ended up being one of our best-selling beers of the lockdown, I think, because people were missing the pubs. And it's made its way into our core range, and it's called Company Bitter. One of the things that we've always focused on since Matt took over the business, he's our head brewer. He took over in 2015, was focusing on taking us in a direction where we were embracing the sort of modern ideas of craft beer while still respecting our heritage. But mostly our aim is always to produce beers that are really delivering on flavour, but really accessible, well integrated, and beers that you want to come back and have time and time again. It's one of the things that we're passionate about making beers that, you know, you can remember and come back to, and hopefully, you know, make their way as a favourite in your fridge on a regular basis. So not too many 10-12%ers coming out on a regular basis. There's plenty of those around. We want to make really well integrated products. So some of the things that we've really focused on, for instance, our sours, we've got a bit of a name for those. They're one of the things that actually caught my attention back when I was just a craft beer fan many a year ago about Ridgeside, was how good their sours were. They were quite ahead of their time. And I remember when I actually interviewed for the business, it was one of the first things I talked about. It was a beer called Thicket. It's a bramble sour, and it's still one of my favourite beers to this day. I was very grateful to have the opportunity to rebrew it with the team last year as part of our 5th anniversary, which was a lot of fun. I should say 5th anniversary of our sort of modern spin on the business. So one of the things that have obviously happened over the last year, which I'm sure everyone is aware, with lockdowns and everything else, forced us to really rethink how we operated as a business. Changing from a brewery that was still quite heavily cask orientated to being 100% can. You know, we'd been canning for a few years, but it was always really small batch, really limited availability. Completely converting into pumping absolutely everything we produced into cans was just something that we weren't prepared for as a team or didn't have the kit for. So it's one of the things that we invested in last year in order to get through, and making sure that we could sell to the public and everything, all these things that we hadn't previously done before. So that was quite challenging, but at the same time, really rewarding. It felt like we got to connect with our community a lot more. And kind of really see our beer in the hands of people a lot more. The support and the outpour last year for independent businesses was amazing, and really helped us get through it all, made us feel like it was worth doing. But yeah, we really treasured that sort of connection to our local support base especially. As such, it means that we've gone into this year, and with the easing of lockdowns, much better prepared for this new reality. We can more beer than we've ever canned. We're actually growing as a business, which is really nice. So we're actually investing quite a lot in infrastructure at the minute. So we've just taken on a new bright tank, which has been running through the last few batches and going really well. Got 2 new tanks on their way in and potentially a third on the horizon. Just try and keep up with demand, which is great. It's a really nice position to be in from the last 12 months. Draft in particular has gone crazy. Some of the things that we're looking to do to further connect with like our local supporters, since we launched the web shop last year, is launch like a subscriber program with maybe some pilot brews and sort of testing out some new ideas. One of the things that's been really great over the last sort of 12, 18 months has been the response to our alcohol-free, which has been an awful lot of R&D on our part, and it's an area we're really keen to grow and sort of innovate. You know, we were one of the first breweries to put an alcohol-free beer in a 440ml can, and we want to keep pushing boundaries in that field as well as everything else that we brew. It all comes down to a degree of responsibility. I think, you know, we want to make sure that we've got a little bit of something for everybody. If you see Objects in Space out there, I highly suggest you grab it. That's our flagship beer and should hopefully give you a bit of an idea about the rest of what we do. Thanks very much for your time, everyone. And if you've got any questions, please do hit us up at shop@ridgesidebrewery.co.uk. I'm always responding to emails on there, so if you've got any ideas or queries, please just drop us a line. All right, thanks so much, guys.
Well, thanks very much to Ridgeside there from Leeds. Good to know what's going on there. I like Ridgeside. Did some great beers, some great sours as well. So very good to hear from you guys. Right, it's time for a bit of this now.
And now it's time for Hype or Tripe.
It's Hype or Tripe. Is it a great beer? Is it a bit of a damp squib beer? Good or bad, we're testing out beers on this section each and every episode to tell you whether we think they live up to the hype. What have we got this time, Dave?
This time there's a lot to unpack. We're doing sours, so you're happy, which is something we've never done on Hype or Tripe before.
As much as I might have wanted to, could never persuade him to do it.
But we've done a sour, and then I've managed to trump you, which I'm absolutely delighted about. We've got 2 different sours, same brewery. It's staggeringly good, who would be in the ballpark of knocking out some of the best sours in the UK, I would guess. I will bow to your knowledge here.
Absolutely. I think, actually, if I think back to, I think it was either episode 1 or 2, Staggeringly Good featured as one of my favourite beers of the month.
You talked about a Sauropod,
Sauropod. Well, the Sauropod series is still going, but they've got another series now called the Wrecker series, and we've got 2 beers from the Wrecker series.
Yes, but you, like a commoner, have got to have yours canned and delivered with all the can art and whatnot, whereas I have got one that's come out of a keg, because hopsters, of all of the beers, of all of the times I've ever needed a kegged beer, have one of the Wrecker series on keg, so I've got mine potentially a bit fresher and a bit more interesting. So
no one likes a big head, though, do they? That's the thing.
Well, speaking of big heads, that's been the thing with these Wreckers, hasn't it? They've turned into sort of brains in the glass.
Some of the videos you've seen on social media, they've just gone bonkers, bursting out of the can and going everywhere. So you've got to pour these things very carefully. So presumably yours could be a lot livelier than mine then.
It could have been, but it's definitely not been.
Oh, okay.
I think when it was poured, there was an idea of maybe not filling it right to the top, so it didn't go mental when I did open the can, and it didn't. It's behaved itself completely. I've got no head. It's just a glass of pure raspberry cherry colour, and that's because to be clear, I have the bloody Bakewell Wrecker, which is raspberry, cherry, and almond. And Staggeringly Good's description of said beer is the liquid form of taking Mr. Kipling hostage. So I know what I'm after here.
This will be quite fascinating because it wasn't long ago I did a cherry Bakewell sour on Brew to Me from Caps Off and Hops and Dots. And I've noticed this with cherry Bakewell beers. They often don't taste like cherry Bakewell, so this will be interesting. I have got, just to keep everybody in the loop, I have got the Reptile Respawn Wrecker, which is mango, passion fruit and chili. I'll tell you what's interesting. I've just noticed this, Dave. We've both got Staggeringly Goods, and we're both drinking out of the same glass as well. We've both got a copper beach glass.
Oh, yes, we do.
Anyway, I'm going to let you go first.
Okay. Right. It does not smell of cherry, raspberry or almond. It actually just smells quite soury tart. Right. Okay. Cherry, yes. Raspberry, yes. Where's the almond?
This is what you find with all these almond cherry Bakewell beers. There's no almond. Where's it gone?
I can't get any off the first hit. Whether there's some in there that I'll get in a later date, I don't know. But I would have thought if it's gonna be anywhere, it's gonna be coming out of keg rather than coming out of a can.
And is it mainly cherries with a sort of backup hit of raspberries?
Yes, I'd say that description is pretty much bang on. Yeah. I would say it is supremely smooth. There's no way on earth this is 8.5% because I've taken 2 massive gulps out of it. It could go down in 4 gulps very easily. This for me is not sour. It might have smelled vaguely sour. It's not even tart. It's a bit like drinking cherry or raspberry juice.
Interested. Almond must be a really, really tricky adjunct to deal with.
Yeah, it's in that chocolate orange kind of category.
Very few people seem to master it. Right, shall I go in for the Reptile Respawn? It is pretty thick. It's supposed to be mango, passion fruit and chili. Let's have a little sniff. Mango, yes. Passion fruit, yes. Not getting the chili in huge amounts. Let's taste it.
Chili's another acquired taste, and it's one of those, if they say it's going to be in there, you don't want it to blow your head off, but you do want to know it's around.
Well, the colour is, Dave, we've used this description before, the sort of Solero, isn't it? Look at that.
Yeah, that is a lovely colour.
That colour is absolutely supreme. There's maybe a little bit of fieriness right at the end, but it's very subtle if it is there. Then again, I don't particularly want a huge, like you alluded to.
No, I think maybe a subtle hit might be best in that instance. You want to keep going back, don't you? You don't want to feel like it's getting hotter and hotter.
Yeah, exactly. I tell you what, it doesn't taste like 8.5% either.
No, I think they've hidden the ABV brilliantly. I would actually say, of the 2, I would say yours is probably a bit thicker than mine. Mine looks a little bit thin, but doesn't taste thin. It's very full of the fruit. Yeah. I can't fault it for that.
The head situation is there isn't any. There's just a few little tiny bubbles fizzing away on the top around the edge of the glass. So very little in the way of carbonation. But goodness, that does taste good. Again, it's sort of tart and sharp rather than sour. That's fine with me. I think, sour beers encompass such a huge range of styles. They're not all going to be, curl your face up and crash to the floor because they're so bitter, you know. This does the job very nicely, I think. Hype for me. Hype for you?
No.
Oh.
It's not tripe. It's just I can't have it because you've promised me 3 things and you're giving me 2.
Yeah.
And that is always my sticking point. If I'm told it's going to taste of things, it has to taste of them. And I'm afraid it just doesn't. The description is a fruit beer, so they've actually, in fairness, they've not even suggested this is potentially a sour, and I would agree with fruit beer as a description. It is sweet, but it's not overpoweringly sweet. I'm going to get through it, no questions asked. It's easy to drink, but it is not the liquid form of taking Mr. Kipling hostage. I'm sorry, you've perhaps sent him a nasty letter, but that's the limit of it for me. It's good. It's just not quite there. And I'm intrigued now. Like, obviously, cherry bakewell seems to be a really hard flavour to pull off.
Yeah.
So
I'd love to get hold of one that really works on all levels. So if you're listening and you've had one that really worked, let us know, because I want to get hold of it and road test it as well. Be really interested to hear from you on that.
Yeah, it's not put me off having these sorts of beers a bit more. I could get into this by degrees. I wouldn't say I'll still be seeking these out. I'm really pleased I've had it, but it's not tipped me into wanting to get these kind of beers all the time. I will just now think, oh, if I'm in the mood for one, I won't. You wouldn't be poo-poo it straight away. Yeah. I might consider it.
You wouldn't be put off by it just because it. I tell you what, I can't taste the chili, but Jesus, I'm hot. Whether that is a coincidence, I don't know. But crikey,
I think you were always going to be happy with yours, and you look happy with yours, and I think mine's probably slightly exceeded my expectations. But they've just you've sold me the farm, but you haven't quite given it all to me, so I'm on the fence with it. It's not hype, but it's not tripe.
So if you'd have got the almonds and it tasted like Mr. Kipling had been there and mixed it all up, I think it would have been hype for you, wouldn't it? Yeah,
completely. If I'd have got that bit, but in my mind, if it had been in there, it would have rounded it out. You'd have had that almost little marzipan-y taste, and it would have made it that bit fuller, and I'd be raving about it. But as it is, I've just got a cherry and a raspberry beer.
So there you have it. One hype and one not hype, but certainly not tripe. Both happy drinkers at the moment. And talking about happy drinking and getting out and about, which we were earlier, watch out for Indie Beer Shop Day, which is happening soon. If you're listening to this podcast after it's just come out, it hasn't happened yet. It's on July the 17th, so your local independent bottle shop may be doing something. There's 3 breweries involved with Indie Beer Shop Day. There's Double Barreled, Abbeydale and Pilot, and they've each produced a beer, and hopefully your local bottle shop will have signed up to this, and they'll be doing some festivities and things throughout the day, and they'll have these beers. I know Hall, our soon-to-be sponsor, they're doing an event, and I shall be there. So look out at your local beer shop, get tickets if they've got on events, and always support your local bottle shops as well, and tell us about them. Get on Instagram and tell us where you get your beers from, and also what you've enjoyed drinking recently, and you could appear on Daftaboutcraft in a future episode. Send us a voice note, message, anything you want, and you might hear your voice coming back at you at some point in the future.
Daft About Craft, the craft beer podcast.
Hello, Daft About Craft listeners. This is Ryan, entertainer, star of Four in a Bed, and best friend of Dave B and Dave D. The guys will be back with episode 17 on August the 2nd. There'll be plenty of stories about myself, which you will all love, as you get an inside track on Dave B's stag do, the wedding, and all about the craft beers that we drank during that time. Plus, all the usual features and interviews will be back too, so make sure you tune in.
Daft About Craft.